Yeah, online children. I've shared my screen. Visible?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'll take it from you. Okay. Okay. Proportions. Now, what is a proportion? What is a proportion? The equality of two ratios is called a proportion. And what is a ratio? What is a ratio? Comparing quantities of the same kind. Ratio is comparing quantities. Ratio is comparing quantities of the same kind or with the same unit. So you can compare 2 centimeters and 2 kilometers. But you cannot compare it will not give a meaningful comparison. You cannot compare 2 kilometers and 4 apples. It will not give any, you can find the ratio, but it's not meaningful. You cannot infer anything from that. So same unit here, they're not of the same unit. So you can convert kilometer to centimeter. And then when you compare, that's a ratio. Ratio is comparing quantities of the same kind. You can compare 10 apples to 4 apples. Now, when two ratios are equal, they are said to be in proportion. When two ratios are equal, so we have a ratio A is to B. We have another ratio C is to D. See, in the ratio, there is no unit. Like 4 centimeters by 10 centimeters. Centimeter gets cancelled. So the answer is 2 by 5 or 2 is to 5. Ratio does not have any unit. Ratio does not carry any unit. Are you drawing, Avnish? Have we just yeah, now it's fine. Now I can see both of them. Because all through the class he had put his head down and what are you doing? Naruto. He's drawing something. All right. Okay, so the ratio does not have a unit. Ratio does not have a unit because the units they get cancelled. Centimeter cancels. So 2, 5. 2 is to 5 is the ratio. So ratio does not carry any unit. Comparing two or more quantities, okay? You can compare more than 2 quantities also. Comparing 2 or more quantities of the same kind is called ratio. And when 2 ratios are equal, they're said to be in proportion. Ratio does not have any unit. Now we have a ratio A by B. A is to B is nothing but A by B. It's the same as A by B. Ratio is nothing but division. C is to D is nothing but C by D. So when we say that A by B is equal to C by D, these two ratios are equal. I've not come there. When two ratios are equal, A by B and C by D. Okay, so we can also write it like this. A is to B is as to C is to D. A is to B is as to like we when you were in second or third grade, cat is to kitten is as to dog is to what? Puppy. Right, what dog? I said puppy. I said Natalie. Puppy Natalie. Okay. Okay, fine. Let's not go there. So, like this, A is to B is as to C is to D. Is as to meaning is the same as. A is to B is as to C is to D. Okay. So this is a proportion because this ratio is equal to this ratio. A is to B ratio is equal to C is to D ratio. Now in proportions, so what is ratio? Comparing two or more quantities of the same kind is ratio. When two ratios are equal, they are said to be in proportion. And you can say A is to B is as to C is to D is a proportion. Is a proportion. Now, you must have also seen this, no? In a proportion, the product of extremes is equal to the product of means. This is the product of extremes. Product of extremes. And this is the product of means. A into D is the product of extremes. B into C is the product of means. These are called the mean quantities. These are called the extreme quantities. A and D are the extreme quantities. A, B, C, D are four different quantities. A, B, C, and D are four different, they are referred to as quantities. A and D are the extreme quantities. B and C are the mean quantities. The product of means, B into C, is equal to the product of extremes, A into D. Okay, 12:30 was in class. I started at 10. No, I scheduled it from 9:30 to 12. I started at 10, so it's still 12:30. That's why I asked you if you all had your breakfast. And you all said yes. Now you cannot say no. That's why I asked you. Okay, so yeah. So product of extremes. Your parents are informed, so nobody will be waiting down. Don't worry. They're all informed. So the class finishes at 12:30. So A into D is equal to B into C. Product of extremes is equal to product of means. Now coming to direct and inverse proportions. Direct proportion is, see, proportion. That means, no, I don't want any, upset faces. Direct proportion. Proportion means again two ratios. Direct proportion. So when the increase in one quantity causes an increase in the other, or the decrease in one quantity causes a decrease in the other. Increase, increase, decrease, decrease. There are two quantities. One increases, the other one increases. If one decreases, the other also decreases. Then the two quantities are related by the direct proportion. Direct proportion. Like time and distance. If speed is a constant, time and distance. They give you less time, less distance. More time, more distance. And when quantities are in direct proportion, we say the ratio is a constant. X by Y. The ratio X by Y is a constant. Constant is referred to by the letter K. X by Y is a constant. The ratio X by Y. I'll tell you what it means. Okay, you're like, what is this? Ratio X by Y is a constant. Okay. So say for your guests, you want to serve at least, not at least, 2 rotis per guest. How many rotis per guest? There are many other things in your menu. One of it is rotis. So if you want to have 50 guests, each guest you want to give, at least 2 rotis. Meaning, okay, two rotis. So 50 means you should order for 100 rotis, or you should prepare 100 rotis. If you're calling 500 guests, then you must order or prepare 1000 rotis. 10 guests, 20. 30 guests, 60. So இப்ப 50 10 ஆச்சுன்னா see decrease ஆனா number of rotations கம்மியாயிடுது. 50ன்றது 10 ஆச்சுன்னா if the number of guests reduce, number of rotations also reduce proportionally. அதே அந்த 10 30 ஆச்சுன்னா இந்த 20 60 ஆயிடுது. Number of guests, number of rotis. You want to give 2 rotis per guest. So if you invite 50 of them, you need to have 100 rotis. 10 of them, then 20 rotis. Less guests, less rotis. More guests, more rotis. Direct proportion. So what you will see here is, this is the x quantity, this is the y quantity. Anything can be x and y, that's okay. But the first one I'm calling x, second one y. You can even call it p and q, but xy, like in the books, FMA, xy. So teachers also use xy. So xy. You can also use a and b. It's just a practice. So like you, okay. Okay, so x and y. So this is x1, this is x2. Is somebody making the noise like this, or is it happening now? If you will start rocking like a baby. X1, X2, X3, X4. X quantities எல்லாம் வந்து X1, X2, X3, X4. Y நாங்க பண்ணாததா காலேஜ்ல புதுசா ஏதாவது பண்ணுங்க. Y quantities வந்து Y1, Y2, Y3, Y4. Y quantities வந்து Y1, Y2, Y3, Y4. X quantities X1, X2, X3, X4. Now here what you will observe is X1 by Y1 is equal to X2 by Y2 is equal to X3 by Y3 is equal to X4 by Y4 and so on. 50 by 100, 1 by 2 is equal to 10 by 20, 1 by 2 is equal to 30 by 60, 1 by 2 is equal to 500 by 1000, 1 by 2. So x by y is a constant. X by y is a constant. Understand why we say x by y is a constant? X இருக்கிறதுலாம் x1, x2, x3, x4. Y இருக்கிறதுலாம் y1, y2, y3, y4. Now when you find x1 by y1, 50 by 100, 1 by 2. x2 by y2, 10 by 20, 1 by 2. So you see that x1 by y1 is equal to x2 by y2 is equal to x3 by y3 and so on. So we say x by y is a constant. What is it constant here? 1 by 2. What's it constant here? 1 by 2. It can be anything. Here it is 1 by 2. Okay. Inverse proportion. Inverse proportion. Online children, my screen is visible and I'm audible, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. Inverse proportion. So one increases, one quantity increases, the other one decreases, or one decreases, the other increases. Opposite are. That is inverse proportion. Okay. So very common example is, in the construction, construction of a building. If you employ less people, then you need more time to finish the work. If you employ more people, you can finish it in less time. Men and work done. Less men. So again, when it comes to this, the situation is very important. In the situation, if you say like less men, less work, more men, more work. Less men, less work. More men, more work. But what is the situation I gave you? It's about constructing a building. If you employ less men, you'll take a longer time to finish the work. If you employ more men, the work is completed in less time. Okay, so we need to understand the situation correctly to understand whether it is direct or inverse. Generally, less men and less work. More men, more work. That is one thing. What did I say? Construction, you have employed less people. So less people, then it will take a long time to finish the work. If you employ more people, the work is done in less time. So this is inverse proportion. Okay, so men and days. I'll just write men and days. I explain the situation. So I'll just write men and days. Men is X and days is Y. Okay. Okay, so this is a fact. This is a fact meaning I have not written random numbers. So if you employ 60 men and they take 2 days to finish the work, if supposing you employ 60 men and they take 2 days to finish the work, then 40 men will need 3 days, 1 day extra to finish the work. 10 men, இன்னும் கம்மி. அப்ப 12 days ஆகும் வேலையை முடிக்கிறதுக்கு. ஒரே ஒரு ஆள் அந்த வேலையை பண்ணோம்னா 120 days ஆகும். 8 people engage பண்ணா 15 days ஆகும். Okay. This is a fact. இது ஒரு நிஜமாவே this is a situation, meaning I'm not simply written random numbers. Now what you will see here is the product XY is a constant. 16 into 2, 120. 40 into 3, 120. 10 into 12, 120. 1 into 120, 120. 8 into 15, 120. So x1, y, x2, x3, x கீழே இருக்கிறதுலாம் x1, x2, x3, x4, x5. y கீழே இருக்கிறதெல்லாம் y1, y2, y3, y4, y5. So what do you see here? x1 into y1, x1 into y1 is 120. x2 into y2 is 120. x3 into y3 is 120. x4 into y4 is 120, which means xy is a constant. The product is a constant. In direct variation, the ratio, that is division, x by y is a constant. In inverse variation or inverse proportion, the product is a constant. So if they give you a table, they'll give you a table and they'll ask you to say if the quantities in the table vary directly or inversely. So நீங்க ரேஷியோ கண்டுபிடிங்க. எல்லாம் ஒண்ணா இருந்தா டைரக்ட் ப்ரொபோர்ஷன், இல்ல ப்ராடக்ட் ஒண்ணா இருந்தா இன்வெர்ஸ் ப்ரொபோர்ஷன். எதுவுமே ஒண்ணா இல்லைன்னா அந்த மாதிரி கொஸ்டின் கொடுக்க மாட்டாங்க உங்களுக்கு. ஏதாவது ஒண்ணு இருக்கும், either this or that. So this can be a question. Given a table, you'll have all the values. Say if the quantities x and y or a and b vary directly or inversely. So you do a by b. Everybody should do a by b. Full it should work. If it doesn't work throughout, then you should say it is neither in direct nor in inverse proportion. Supposing everything works but one does not work, or everything should work 100 on 100. The time is 12. Look at Navneet's face. Okay. 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 X by y is a constant for direct proportion. X into y is a constant for inverse proportion. All right. Online children, honestly, we'll stop at this point because the children boys are getting restless in the class here. But I'll be available till 12:30. Girls online, if you want to do the graph now, you can do the graph now. Or if it is okay, just check with your parents. If it's okay, if I can wind up the session now, I'll wind it up. Or I can wait in the meeting for 15 minutes. You can do your graph. Just stop the recording because children are not able to continue beyond this. Very nice.